Things look a little different around here when John Barry is not in the house.
Yeah, a lot shorter.
The dress code's a little different.
Yeah.
We wear hats. We wear hats when John Barry's not around.
It's a very festive mood without John Barry sitting around the place.
We also do things a little differently on the show because, well, this is... Maybe Andrew Ryder doesn't know this yet. He's our producer, but this will be our last show of 2015 because I just don't feel like doing one next week as we transition between holidays. So this will be our year in review show. We're going to break down Badgers, Packers, Brewers, Bucks, some high school stuff, pretty much anything that comes to mind as we try to reminisce about the
year that was,
right,
2015.
Whatever the most memorable moment was. We'll list ours maybe at the end after we go through some of these things. We'll do it while wearing goofy hats and not being John Barry. So all that coming up on this episode of Extra Points. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Extra Points. This is going to be the last show of the year for Extra Points, so we thought we'd do a little year in review. We thought we'd wear some hats, and we thought we would kick John Barry out to the curb. This is not John Barry. This is Tim Seeman. He is a page designer / soccer guru / Bucks columnist, destinations editor. What else?
Yes.
Tell the folks a little something about yourself.
I think you pretty much covered it there, Eric.
That's it.
Marquette alum.
That's right.
So a little different perspective, I guess, on some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today.
Not so Badger-centric.
Yeah, I would say definitely not.
Although, to get this year in review started, I mean, I think it has to start with the Badgers. What bigger stories have there been in 2015 than the Badgers' Final Four run and now recently the retiring of Bo Ryan? I mean, even as a Marquette grad, I think you got to admit that those couple of storylines have dominated.
Yeah, absolutely. And throughout last season, as they were marching on their way to the Final Four in the national championship game, I was a little, being a hater about it. I'm a hater, noted Badger hater. But as it came down to it and they were playing Duke and I was on the desk that night, I had to write the headline, get the story in, pick out the photos. And as I was doing that and they were losing the game, I did feel a little something in my heart.
Your heart grew 3 sizes that day.
It did, for briefly. And
it then shrunk right back down. But I guess that, to me, that's kind of when we look at the Final Four, that's kind of the most interesting thing is like, I've watched Around the Horn, pardon the interruption, this week. They had their kind of year in review shows, and they were kind of discussing what was the greatest game of 2015. And on most people's lists, either at the top or very close, was the Wisconsin-Kentucky game, which was actually the national semifinal. So people, at least nationally, when they think back, they're thinking back to the Badgers when they won that game on a Saturday night back in April. And I don't think there weren't a lot of people that probably gave them a chance. Kentucky was 38-0 at that point.
Yeah, when a team's stacked up 38 wins in a row and they had beat the Badgers the year before in the Final Four. A lot the same. The cast of characters was mostly the same for both teams, and it was hard to see where the difference might have been. But Sam Decker, much improved in 2015.
Right.
Frank Kaminsky, same deal. Both first-round draft picks in the NBA. So that kind of made the difference for them playing Kentucky in the Final Four for the second straight year to get into that national championship game and have their chance at it for the first time in 70 some odd years, whatever it was.
Well, exactly. I guess that's the thing that I'll probably remember both of those games, or why I will, because you never know, is it going to be another 76 years before they get back? I hope it isn't, because that means I won't see them ever again. Well, there's modern medicine these days.
Yeah, it's true.
But I just remember that Saturday night I was out, and they were losing for a while there, and it didn't look very good. And all of a sudden they had this huge comeback, and people are just going nuts. And all of a sudden they're in the national championship game. And then that Monday night, it was opening day of the baseball season, so I was at Miller Park, which I like to do every year. But it just felt different. You didn't, for the lack of a better way to put it, you didn't want to lose sense of the Brewer game or lose your senses at the Brewer game because you had a big game coming up that night. I mean, that was about as fun of a stretch as I can imagine.
Yeah, so just the feeling around town, you could sense kind of the excitement when you were out talking to people, getting out on the street. It was all about the Badgers over the spring, and then I mentioned the draftees in the summer. There's a lot of excitement building up for the next season. Nigel Hayes is coming back. Bronson Koenig is going to be, those two are going to kind of be the guys to lead the Badgers into this post Frank and Sam era.
The post Final Fours era, yeah.
Right, yeah, and it's kind of hasn't gone well.
Well, I guess that's why it makes the Badgers the biggest story of the year, is because you usually get like an off season in there somewhere, and there really just hasn't been. From the Final Four to the draft to Bo coming out and saying that this was going to be his last year, to then him saying, well, maybe it's not going to be my last year, to him then abruptly retiring just last week. There's been something every step of the way, and even in the regular season, with them getting off to such a kind of a poor start and losing to Milwaukee and losing to Marquette,
Western Illinois, and the
Western
opener.
Illinois. I mean, the Badgers they've been part of the news cycle for the entire 12 months. Yeah,
and the timing for the Bo thing kind of comes. It's a little funky. You can see that it's the semester break. You have the natural kind of holiday in there where they're taking time off, but it's in the middle of a season. It's tough for a team to kind of adjust to that. Having Greg Gard, who's been with Bo, been with the program, will kind of help ease that, I think. But the players aren't the same. Nobody's as good as Frank Kaminsky or Sam Decker on this team right now.
They got to figure out, because the Big Ten season's here. I don't know if Bo Ryan starts the season and they don't finish fourth in the Big Ten, does that mean his streak is over? Or since he didn't coach the Big Ten season, does it not count? I don't know. Bo pretty much came out and said that he did this all for Gard to give him a chance to win the job. So this story isn't going away either as we get ready to transition into the new year. Whether the Badgers do well or not in the Big Ten season, this is going to continue to be a story as we figure out if Greg Gard is the guy to lead the Badgers into the future.
Yeah, and when the results of the games kind of become secondary, I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for, but for the long-term health of the program, there's a lot of stuff still to sort out as we head into Big Ten.
I think that's probably about it for Badgers in terms of hoops. Do you have any Marquette thoughts just on the year that was? Obviously, they had their first year under Wojo, and now they got things going. I mean, I would say they're trending in the right direction. I wouldn't say they're skyrocketing. But
last season was about to be expected, no postseason, which is disappointing you kind of come to expect that at Marquette after we had a pretty good stretch with some guys who are now in the NBA. But I think Steve Wojciechowski, Wojo, he's got it going. Henry Ellenson's a big help. He might only be there for 1 year. But he's got some other players, Wisconsin-based players, who are getting that program back to where the fans expect it to be and where historically Marquette has been. So exciting times for Marquette.
As long as they keep trending. They don't necessarily have to skyrocket, right? They can just trend up a little bit.
They can make it gradual, but as long as they get to where you want to be.
I would say probably the next biggest story in my eyes is the Packers.
Always is.
Always going to be, and probably almost always number one. But there was just so much Badgers basketball news this year that it actually fell down to number two, at least in my eyes. But when you think back, I guess is the thing that you remember most the botched onside kick in that Seahawks game, or what?
There's so much from that, Seahawks game. If one of the plays that swung that game goes the other way, there was the 2-point conversion where Russell Wilson was scrambling around and he heaves it to the corner of the end zone and they pull it in and get the 2-point conversion. There's the fake field goal that could have gone wrong for the Seahawks. There's the onside kick. The Packers could have won the overtime coin toss. All this stuff, if it went the other way, the Packers might have been playing in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, who they had beaten in the regular season. The Dez Bryant no catch in the previous round, that still comes up from time to time, I would say. But yeah, it's got to be that championship game. And then as the new season has started, we've developed kind of a new appreciation for Jordy Nelson, for sure. The offense is not what it has been in previous years, as we know. Part of that also is appreciation for Mike McCarthy, what he can do with the offense, calling plays, focusing all his attention maybe on the offense during the week, which he was trying to get away from as the season started. But the 3-game losing streak in there kind of made them reevaluate and have to.
It's been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
I mean, they started off and you're like, okay, same old Packers.
6-0, whatever it was, 7-0.
All of a sudden it was like the sky was falling because they lost to the Lions and.
Well, the first
two losses were fine. I mean, they lost to teams that were undefeated, and they're still teams that are probably going to make the playoffs. Broncos figured out.
Carolina's 14-0.
Yeah. But yeah, then they lose the Lions.
The Bears on Thanksgiving on Favre night.
Beat the Vikings, but then they lose to the Bears on the big night. So they lost 4 or 5 games, and it's like everyone thinks they're falling, and there's still some of that, even though they've won 3 in a row now, coming off a win against the Raiders, where it was like. I said this on the radio this week, if you listen to that, but I feel like that game was like a microcosm of the season because 14-0 was kind of like the big winning streak to start the year, and you're like, oh, there they are. Okay, you're up 14-0 at Oakland, and the last decade that's like being up 7 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, then they're losing in the third quarter.
Right. Yeah.
Which was like the slide. Well, then they figured it out well enough at the end to win. I mean, it's that's kind of been how it's been. The consistency is just not there.
No, but I mean, going forward, there's 2 games left. I think this next game in Arizona against the Cardinals, that team can put up a lot of points. They play some defense too. They're 12-2. They're looking for a first round bye. That's going to tell you a lot, I think, about how the rest of this is going to go.
Yep, it's going to play a role in the seeding.
Yep. They still need they'll need Arizona to lose twice if they want the first round bye, but they play Arizona and the Seahawks are the last game for the Cardinals. So
it's win this possible,
win this one, and a lot of stuff can happen still. The prospects in the first round, if they have to play a wild card game, either Seattle or Minnesota. Seattle you don't want to run into.
Right.
They're hot right now. Russell Wilson's on another level. And Minnesota still might be good, they might be bad. They're still kind of finding their way with Teddy Bridgewater.
I feel like if you're the Pack, to me, and Bear and I've talked about this a little too, but to me, the Seahawks are like the one team in the NFC that you don't want to run into right now. And that's kind of the weirdest thing because one team's undefeated and another team just needs to win one more game to get the number 2 seed. So...
Well, I think the main difference between the perception of Seattle and Carolina is that Seattle's done it before, whereas Carolina's still not proven as far as winning in the playoffs. But Cam Newton he's kind of on the same kind of other level as that Russell Wilson has found himself on in these last few weeks. He's been doing that all year. So yeah, those 2 teams you don't want to run into. Probably gonna hit one of them if you're going to the Super Bowl, though.
Well, what do you think? Gut feeling, they haven't been their best, but when you look at it, I just wouldn't be that shocked if they made a Super Bowl run.
Yeah, gut feeling's telling me probably not at this moment. They have a lot of stuff to sort out in the passing game still, even despite Aaron Rodgers. Still, he has the credentials, he has the arm, he has all this stuff, but.
Eddie Lacy, find some consistency, would you?
Yeah.
But Andrew Quolich is coming back, so he could be the answer to solve all the problems.
Sent from the injured reserve heavens.
We'll see. If they make a Super Bowl run, I envision that will be the number 1 story at this time next year. As
2016 year in review. Mark it down.
Let's go from the good to the bad, or maybe even the ugly.
Is that going to be Milwaukee Brewers?
That's the Brewers. Not particularly a season to remember at Miller Park.
And to start out, there was some level of optimism based on, the end to 2014. You hoped that was the anomaly of that season because they'd played so well for whatever it was, 5 months of the year. And then they collapse in September, don't make the playoffs, and you hope that part was the part that you could throw out. But turns out they weren't as good as they had played in 2014, and it just all unraveled quickly for the Brewers in 2015.
It turns out that definition of insanity of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, rang true because they basically didn't change anything in the offseason. They just hoped that they were just going to return to form. Well, the same thing just happened as what happened at the end of the year. We got Craig Counsell in the fold now. We got David Stearns in the fold now.
It's an interesting mix heading up the Brewers now. It's kind of
you or I might be playing first base on opening day.
Yeah, you don't want me. I don't think they want me, but
we get. My reach is pretty good. I don't know about my bat, but
yeah, I'm a little undersized. But yeah, it's.
I guess the story of the Brewers right now is basically what's to come.
Yeah, and how long will it take for them to get back? They made the World Series in 1982 and didn't come back for 25 years. It's kind of the same thing you said with the Badgers. You have a run of success, and then you come to a point where you don't know exactly when you might be feeling that again, if ever.
If ever, right? I guess the thing that I keep drawing back to is we look at how the Cubs have built themselves up in that same division, and you just hope that by bringing in this new hotshot GM that they've tried, that he can put them on a similar path. And if that means that we have 3 or 4 seasons here where it's just not very good, I think we have to live with that if we can see the progress building like the Cubs have done over the past 4 years or so.
And David Stearns was in that Houston organization that had been down for a few years. Like they had lost 100 games in consecutive seasons there in the early part of this decade. But now they've been patient. They have their guys up, the big guys. They have Altuve, Carlos Correa, George Springer's up. And those guys are making a big impact at the major league level. Stearns was part of that to get them back to this point. So
hopefully he learned the recipe of success and can bring it to Milwaukee.
Well, and was the Carlos Gomez trade to Houston brought some of those prospects back. So there's familiarity there. It's just a matter of patience, I guess.
Yeah.
And
we're going to have some.
Yeah.
It seems for sure.
Yeah.
What about and speaking of patience, I'm all over the transitions today, by the way. Where are we at in terms of patience with the Bucks? Because at this time last year, or probably really, I guess 2 months later, probably was about February, where we were really like, wow, this is a young team that people started to take notice of, made the playoffs.
Yep.
And so everybody's
took the Bulls to Game 6.
And then so everybody's kind of expecting them to build on that. And now here we are like 30 games into the season, and they're just struggling along outside of the one victory that put them on the map.
Yeah, it was a big summer for the Bucks with the new logos. Still kind of divided opinion on those. Greg Monroe came in from Detroit, a big acquisition. He turned down some contracts with bigger name teams. I think the Lakers were in on him, and he said no to the Lakers, and he wanted to play for the Bucks because he could see kind of the potential and what was building over the course of the playoffs, the end of last regular season.
Where did it all go wrong?
It's hard to put the defense is not the same. Whatever the reasons for that are, I'm not exactly sure what it is. It's hard to say that it's the absence of Jared Dudley and the absence of Zaza Pachulia have created this big.
It seems impossible
shift.
that would be the case.
Yeah, journeyman veterans making or breaking this team full of future all-stars by all accounts, and Giannis and Jabari Parker,
and even Michael Carter-Williams, who now is coming off the bench. I mean, that he was considered a big piece.
Yeah.
We're in a weird spot. I mean, is this a team you think in the span of January or something can get hot? Or I mean, what?
They're young, so it's a matter of like if you think Giannis and Jabari should still be college players right now. If it were 20 years ago, and college basketball was still a thing that attracted and kept players in college. Giannis, he'd be a junior in college, if you can imagine that, a guy like that running around on a college floor.
That team would be pretty good, probably.
Yeah, I would say so. Jabari, same thing. He'd be a college junior. So it's just a matter of learning how to win. I think they can get there. It's just, I don't know. It's tough. And then the Eastern Conference is way better this year. I don't think there's going to be any sub-500 teams making the playoffs. So they'll have to make some kind of a run if they want to be back in the playoffs this season.
I don't know. I don't really see it, but it just seems so weird because they were kind of the darlings, and now they're just kind of like, where do they go?
Yeah, and they beat the Cavaliers. They beat both conference champions from last season in this regular season, and they take one giant step forward, but then they lose to the Nuggets and the Knicks and the Kings,
Lakers.
the Lakers in the week following, and it's like, how can they find some consistency like the Packers? And
we just need some consistency around here, dang it.
Please, for the love of, give us some consistency.
Santa, bring us some consistency.
It's much needed.
On the high school scene, I don't think there's any bigger story than Craig winning baseball this year. Just a great run. They lost one game all year.
In a competitive
in the Big Eight
conference. Parker's got good
Sun
squad. Sun Prairie,
Middleton.
Yep.
I mean, it was just really fun to watch, and it kind of dragged the high school season into the summer a little bit. But to see a team from Janesville get to state for the second straight year, and not only do that but thrive there and win the way that they did with the pitching staff that they had, which the pitchers were just insane.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fun little run.
Whitewater girls basketball team, unbeaten run through state.
That's as special as it gets when you never even lose a game. And they had some great leaders on that team. Sarah Schumacher is a senior. Miriam Smith-Traore is now a junior. She was a sophomore on that team. And obviously it helps, especially at the Division III level, when you have a college Division I recruit on your team. Even if she's a sophomore. Just kind of a fun story to watch just because of the way that team came together and how it was built.
It's interesting how this season started for them with a loss that they hadn't had in a long time. Maybe refocus them a little bit.
I think so, and they'll tell you too, they weren't the same team in that second game of the year as they are now. And I mean, they're not going to have any trouble in the Rock Valley Conference. It'll just be kind of a matter of how things roll out once regional and sectional play comes. But it wouldn't be surprising to see them make a run all the way back.
No. Like you say, when you have the one player who is kind of head and shoulders above the rest, literally and figuratively, I guess you could say, then that's a big helpful thing for that team.
And even Craig baseball, I mean, they've got a lot coming back. They did lose a very good senior class that had played together for a long time that really helped them, but there's some talent there. And obviously you saw Nick Kramer win the state championship game as a sophomore pitcher. So, I mean,
that's invaluable experience.
There's some experience coming back there, so that'll be interesting. We also had the Bluebirds make a run to state.
Yep.
I don't know if...
It'd been a while since they had gone, if I'm not mistaken. Couple of years.
I think I was back... God, I want to say it was like 06 or something. But I'm not sure people expected that team to do it, so that was kind of a fun run. Turner softball had a really good season. Kind of got over the hump, so to speak, and that was a interesting team with a lot of seniors and a lot of freshmen. And now we'll see where those freshmen kind of carry the torch going forward.
Sure.
I'll never probably forget Eric Furseth winning the state title at wrestling for Craig and doing his backflip at the Cole Center. That was a fun story because he just had a really dominant season. And when you go there, you just never know what happens at state wrestling. Crazy things can happen, and he got it done.
And I imagine following an individual through a state tournament is a little different than following a whole team through
every match is different because your opponent can be so much different.
Right. And you're depending just solely on yourself. Stuff from the coaches, they can help you along and give you advice and scouting, but it's you and the other kid in the case of wrestling on the mat, and it's an impressive feat to go through and be the best wrestler in the state at your weight class. So
Milton girls golf at state finished third. They were ranked number one at different points throughout the season, and maybe they didn't have their best state championship that they would have hoped for, but you can't take away from them that season that they had.
That's one of those programs that reloads. They don't rebuild anything. They're always going to be up there. And
pretty much for the last 5 years, they've been, if they haven't gone to state, I think they've gone to state every year except for one, and they missed on the sectional playoff by like a stroke that year. I mean, so.
Yeah, always in the mix.
I also think back to the Craig girls basketball run. They were 5 minutes away from going to state.
I remember I was in the office that day listening on the radio, and it just unfolded slowly, and it was just so disappointing because, like you said, they were so close to their first state.
Yep, first state girls berth for girls basketball.
So And then
Al Hughes has gone on. She's already off to a fantastic career at Crookston in Minnesota, and probably making some Division I programs wonder what in the world they were doing by not bringing her in.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens there. But Lake Geneva Badger football team, I think, too, knocking on the doorstep of state. We knew they were going to be better and kind of be back this year, but I don't know if we saw them make that run to the state semifinals, and they were in that for the first half there, and people didn't expect that either. So kudos to them for making that sort of run.
Absolutely.
And Parker back in the playoffs for the first time in a few years.
Still couldn't beat Craig, but back in the playoffs.
This is the Parker grad that's remembering that and telling the Craig grad. So.
Yeah, but I mean, if they can get back to kind of the glory days when I was at Parker still, it's a good first step if they're going to build back to that. So.
It'll be fun to watch. I mean, something new comes along too every year that you weren't really expecting. So we'll see where that is in 2016. Other teams around here that were championship caliber. I think we'd be remiss if we don't talk about the Jets here. Made a run all the way to the Robertson Cup semifinals, and really they were the best team in the NAHL through the regular season last year.
Yep.
I know they were disappointed that they didn't get to the finals or win the whole dang thing. Just with the group that they had, it was just a special locker room and that's what it takes to make a run and through a 60-some game schedule and then the playoffs. When you think back, you think Matt Jarusik because he had the goalie because he had such a crazy season.
Yep, and he's doing things up at Madison now. He committed. He's getting his chance now, and he's winning. He's kind
of been their hope. He beat North Dakota. That's a team that's obviously in rebuilding mode, and if they're going to have a chance, basically if he can hold teams to a goal or two, then they might have a chance. But outside of that, I mean, a lot of it's on him, and he seems to have responded as well as you can expect as a freshman.
Yeah.
And the Jets are off to another good start this year, and they're in a much tougher division.
Yeah, the NAHL kind of reshuffled things. They're playing teams from Alaska this year, team from Minnesota, one of them the Wilderness.
The Wilderness, yeah.
They won it, right?
Yep.
They were the champions last year, so defending champs now in their division. You see them a lot more often.
I think that they're going to make the playoffs. I mean, they're in fourth. I can't see them falling out of that top four in the division to make the playoffs. And then it'll just kind of depend on where things are at when the postseason arrives. I know they've done a little tinkering with the lineup. I mean, you have your captain leave mid-season to go play Division I hockey.
That'll upset the boat a little bit.
Yeah, but if you have everything going in the right direction and you make the playoffs, you just never know what happens there.
Right.
So we'll see if they can make another run. And then the other one I think of is the Warhawks. I mean, didn't make it quite back to the Stag Bowl, but first year under Coach Bullis, and they just did the same exact things that they've been doing.
Yeah, if they had been able to beat Oshkosh in the regular season, the seeding might have worked out a little differently, where they might not have had to play Mount Union in the semifinals. Don't know exactly how the NCAA sorts out that kind of thing. But
some seeding, but they had the loss and Mount Union didn't. They also probably would have hosted a couple more games, or maybe even could have hosted a national semifinal, which would have changed things drastically.
Sure.
So, but I mean, when you lose a coach that jumps from Division III to FBS level, and
obviously highly respected,
the next guy comes in and rattles off what ended up being a 2-loss season, but you go all the way to the national semis. I mean, we're at the point where it doesn't even matter what Whitewater program it is. You're just expecting them to be in the national championship hunt.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
It is. Yeah. And it's just speaks to what they're doing over there as an entire athletic department. So
we'll see. I expect everybody to reload. I think the basketball teams are off to pretty good starts. The men's team had a lot to replace, so to see them make a Final Four run would be kind of crazy again, but they've been there the last few years.
Sure.
The baseball team, I can't sit here and tell you that I'm an expert on that one, but that team's been strong, and I imagine it will be again. What else? Anything else in from this year of sports?
We cover Badger football.
Badger football, we didn't cover that.
Let's talk about them for a second.
first year under Paul Christ, obviously that was kind of the main storyline. As we see the coaching, we talked the coaching change on the basketball side of things. We had the coaching change on the football side of things.
And he, like Greg, Paul Christ had been around the program for a long time before he took a couple of years at Pittsburgh.
A Wisconsin Madison guy,
but now he's back. He knows the expectations at this point, and it's just a matter of getting it going in the right direction again. Not that they were going in the wrong direction necessarily, but it's kind of a down year, I would say, for them and the Big Ten West division in general.
I think that's kind of why it was even more so down, because you look at it and you think, well, they lost to Alabama. They're in the playoffs. They lost to Iowa. I think, are they in the Rose Bowl?
Yep.
They're in the Rose Bowl.
They'll be in the Rose Bowl.
And they lost to Northwestern in a game where they just got completely hosed. So I kind of throw that game out. Then they beat 9 teams that they should have beat. I mean,
right? Yeah.
So what do you? I don't know what you take from that. It was just kind of. It was a year.
Yep. We had another year in the books.
They turned the calendar in that year, and
not yet though. Not until the Holiday Bowl.
That's true. We got the Holiday Bowl coming
December 30th,
and that's the most intriguing thing, because they're actually playing a team, USC, of national caliber, and we'll get a chance to see what have they built to through this year, and what do they have coming for next year a little bit.
Yeah.
And I guess the story for next year will be who's the quarterback.
Yeah. It looks like it's down to Bart Houston pretty much, but you never know what can happen in spring.
I don't know about that. I think some of these young guys, some of the freshmen, have a chance.
All right.
I hope they do, because if Bart Houston wasn't better than Joel Stavia was this year, I just don't know where they're going.
Where do you go? Yeah. But the defense, was solid all year. Not a lot of points allowed, so that's something you can build on with a football team, is a strong defense. And
the year was so mediocre for Badger football that I almost didn't even include it in the show. That's how bad it was.
That's all you need to know. Good thing Marquette guy here
can't imagine what. Yeah,
pulled it out of the fire.
Can't imagine what else I missed. Probably lots of things. You can tell us out there in readership, viewership, listener land. What did we forget? What moments do you remember most?
Tell us.
Send us an email to sports@gazetteextra.com, or leave a comment on Gazette Extra or any of these other places that you might have found us. You can also just let us know what you think of the show, or leave us a review on YouTube or iTunes. We might even read it here in 2016 when we kick off the year with our first show. You can also find us on Twitter, including Tim. Tim's on Twitter too.
Yep. A lot of tweets going on.
You might learn more about soccer if you follow Tim on Twitter.
Hashtag soccer tweets,
or
guys.
The Simpsons, or things like that nature.
Various things that...
That's what Twitter's for.
That's right. Learn more about your guys. You can find
us there. Otherwise, thanks to our producer, Andrew Ryder, for making this show possible, and to Kevin McLeod for all the music. And we wish everybody happy holidays and a happy new year.
Absolutely. Seconded.
Take a minute to think about the year that was and what you want to see from 2016. Get those resolutions ready, and we'll see you back here in 2016.
See you in the gym.